Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I just wanted to get right into it. We will be talking about the healing process and facing you. So the healing process is very different, and I think for a lot of people it's different because we all heal differently. And so I know for me, I really have been going through the process this year of healing. And if you watched my last video, we talked about death and how that really affected me at the beginning of this year. And so now, after that, that kind of jump started my healing process. And then, after that, it just began to keep on going. And so I'm like, okay, great. So this is going to be a healing year for me. Awesome. Something that I tried to avoid and not deal with. It's time to deal with it. This year was like, girl, it's time to deal with it. And so I really wasn't prepared for it. And I think that's the part that really, was crazy, because I kept on telling myself, oh, I'll get to it, or I've already dealt with it. So there's really no much for me to do. So I don't even understand why I'm dealing with this or going through this. And baby, let me tell you, the beginning of this year, I should have known. I should have known that, when Kobe died and what else happened? I don't know. A lot of stuff happened. I should have known it was just going to be one of those years that, it just wasn't going to be the best year, But so, yeah, the beginning of this year, it really jump started my healing process. But can I tell you that now the space that I am, it's just so beautiful and so freeing. A lot of things have happened this year that really have caused us to I think have to deal with our emotions finally. And a lot of unfortunate things have happened. We started this year out with Kobe's death, and then shortly after, the coronavirus started and we got put on lockdown. And then we had like George Floyd and that situation, Breonna Taylor. So we had a lot of things that it was a lot of heavy emotions this year. And so I think for a lot of people, it either caused them to go into a deep depression or wake up and realizing we had to deal with our trauma, we had to deal with our wounds, we had to start the healing process. And so for me, I was one of those people that realized it was time for me to start healing. And I couldn't keep on avoiding it anymore. I couldn't keep on running from it. It caught me face on beginning of this year, when my mom's friend died, and I had to finally face what it was like to finally deal with my emotions with death. And in that, it really shook me. It really took me to a point where I just thought that, I felt the emotions were so heavy, I didn't know how I was going to deal with it. And so, in the death video that I did before this, that you guys can go check out if you haven't already seen it. But in that, I really had to face my emotions, and I had to face everything that, I once thought about death and didn't want to deal with. And so that really started the process for me. And then diving deeper into the year, I had a lot of personal issues that I thought I dealt with, but I didn't. And so then those came into play. And when those came into play, I put my stance on, I'm not dealing with this, or that's not real. I don't really feel this, so I don't really know what's happening. But it's not it's not, I just didn't want to address it, and I just didn't want to face it once again. And so, once again, my wonderful feelings was like, hey girl, hey, you don't want to talk to us today, but we're going to talk to you. And so when they started talking to me, I was just like, oh, okay. So that's what we're talking about, huh? And so, you know, once they started talking and I started finally listening, I was like, wow, Alana, there is so much that you haven't dealt with. And do you realize that it's really having a huge effect on you? And I really had to, you know, talk to myself. Like, this is me talking to myself. And I was like, Alana, like, you are missing out on so much, and you are self-sabotaging so many, you know, different relationships in your life because you haven't dealt with some of your issues. And I'm like, what, girl? What you talking about? And it's like, no, like, you know, haven't took the time to really sit down and with yourself and really understand what has happened to you and why you have gotten to this mindset and this way of living. And so for a couple like months, you know, the beginning of the year started, but then it wasn't until I think, when was it? June. Some unfortunate things happened to me where I you know, due to the COVID, where I was no longer working, and so I was then at home more, and I was it was like God was kind of really giving me no other option but to finally have to deal with my emotions. I kept on praying, like, Lord, please help me, you know, be free and forgive and blah 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 blah. But then I really wasn't really trying to, or I really wasn't, you know, being serious about it. And this time it was like, because I was like, okay, you know, I really want to get free, I really want to. He was like, okay, bet, you know, you want to get free, bet. So I basically got put into a situation and circumstances where I had no other choice but to deal with myself. I had no distractions, I had no work. It was like, you know, you got to deal with it a lot. And so it's no more running, it's no more hiding, it's no more, oh, well, you know, so and so needs me, or I was just not, like, no, sis, it's time. And you know, looking back, like, I was just talking to someone, and I was saying how that situation in my life, it was like, you know, at that point I just thought the world was ending because everything was crashing down, because I was like, oh my God, like, oh, I finally got to deal with my stuff. I had real feelings come back, because I was one of those people that like to shove stuff down, like to act like things didn't happen. And that's another thing I realized from my childhood, that I wasn't like that. I wasn't born that way. I remember I was more of a talker, expresser, get your feelings out type person, and I had people around me who did not appreciate that and didn't like that. And so they would tell me that my feelings didn't matter and that, you know, I shouldn't talk. And so I really let that affect me. And something from my childhood got brought all the way up until where I'm at now. And, you know, this is why it's really important for us to deal with things, because you start taking on things that are unnecessary and actually do you more harm in the future. And so once I realized that, you know, that was one of the steps. Like, I was like, okay, so this is why you don't deal with your emotions, because this happened to you when you were how old, and now you're this old, and it's still affecting you. Okay, so number one, we got to deal with this. We got to get to the root of this and, you know, give that and forgive those people that, you know, told you that, so that you can start being free and that you can start experiencing your healing. And so I started doing that. And then after that, it like unlocked, you know, everything for me, because why? It gave me permission to now be able to feel my emotions, to now be able to express my emotions, to now be able to process my emotions. And so once I got that freedom, you know, from myself, I had to give. At that point, it doesn't matter what those people said to me or, you know, what happened to me. At this point, it was my responsibility to give my own self freedom to be able to do the work and start the healing process. And so I finally gave myself freedom. I finally gave myself permission to be who I was born to be. And, you know, what and finally experience the freedom that God wanted me to experience. And so once I did that, the layers started falling back. You know, the heavy weight and the heavy burden started lifting off of me, because I finally decided to be free. I finally decided to start facing myself. And you know, it's so freeing, and it's amazing to think about now, because I didn't realize how I was so buried down and weighed down, because I did not give myself permission anymore to feel. I didn't give myself permission anymore to acknowledge my feelings. And you know, being told that your feelings don't matter, and that they're not, you know, valid or important, it can really affect you in how you start to deal with things. And so once I realized that, I'm like, wow, Alana, like, we have to really work through this, because if not, you know, it'll continue to play a huge effect on your relationships moving forward and different things like that. And we don't want that. We don't want to continue the cycle of pain. We don't want to continue the cycle of unforgiveness and trauma to be continued to pass down from generation to generation and from people to people. Because you know what they say, hurt people hurt people. So if we never deal with our emotions, if we never deal with our pain, we're just going to end up being that person that no matter how hard we try to tell ourselves that we're not, no matter how hard we try to tell ourselves that we don't feel, that we already dealt with that, blah, 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 we're going to continue to hurt people. We're going to continue to pass down trauma and different things when we don't have to. You know, one thing I learned in this process was how important it is to take personal responsibility for your healing. And what I mean by that is we often try to blame, we often try to play the not fair game, we often try to play, do everything and blame everybody except ourselves, except, instead of really facing the reality. And so, I had to realize, what I discovered is I had to realize I couldn't keep on blaming people. I couldn't keep on, holding a grudge. I couldn't keep on being angry and mad and sad and all this stuff and having all these strong feelings and emotions harboring in me towards a person that, half of the time people who do things to you that we're holding on to all this trauma and pain from don't even remember that they did it. Or they do remember it, but we're so stuck on they need to apologize and they need to know what they did to me. And we sitting here, really the ones hurting, because they could really, most people could care less, or most people just don't even know, why you mad. And so we sitting here mad, and they trying to figure out, what's wrong with this girl? Because it not only shows, towards that person, but it starts showing up in our life towards, any other person that reminds you of them, looks like them, just anything. And that's because we haven't dealt with it. We haven't took the time to deal with our emotions and feelings and take personal responsibility for them. And I'm not saying people's actions, that they should just be able to do what they want to people and get away with it. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. But I am saying that if you want to experience true freedom in your life and break the cycle of pain, break the cycle of trauma, break the cycle of hurt people, you have to do your part and take responsibility for your, healing. And it really sucks. Can I say that? It really sucks. And, because you try to tell yourself, why I didn't do this? They did this to me, and, blah, blah. But you have to realize, love, you are hurting yourself in the long run. And that's what I had to realize. I said, Alana, it's really unfortunate that they did that to you. It's really unfortunate that happened to you. But sis, if you don't deal with it yourself, if you don't find forgiveness in your heart yourself, if you don't heal yourself, it really doesn't matter, because you're hurting you more now than, that hurt or whatever they did to you. It's hurting you more. It's affecting you more, because it's now harboring up in you and building all this, unnecessary emotions. And then when you meet people or do things with people, it starts pouring out. And then they look at you like, I ain't do nothing to you, or like, why did you do that? And you just trying to figure out, like, I don't even know. Like, half the time I look back on situations, I'm like, why did I do that? Like, what was I thinking? And it's because I never dealt with my emotions. I never sat down and faced myself. And so, this process was very deep. It was very intense. It showed me things about myself that I really didn't recognize at first. And it really shows you how imperfect you are, and how just you can become just as worse as that person who hurt you, because you chose to continue to hold on to that hurt and that pain. And how when you really sit down with yourself, you realize you're really just as imperfect as the next person. And once I realized that, I really had to make a change. I said to myself, we can't keep on doing this. How does the cycle end? How do we stop this? And I realized I needed to process this. I needed to write down what I felt. I needed to verbally confess, I forgive X, Y, and Z, and put their name there. I had to go deep. I had to go into my childhood. I had to go into my present. I had to go, and then, I had to, childhood, present, and then pull out all that pain, all that trauma. And then after that, go into my future and speak the things that I want, to happen in my future, and want to be better in my future. And so, facing yourself is hard. Facing yourself is difficult. It's different, because a lot of people find things to suppress so they don't have to feel the pain, because pain hurts. Pain is hard. Pain is scary. Feeling what you feel, it's a different type of experience, because you finally have to feel it. Depending on how deep you go, you finally feel that trauma. You finally feel that pain. You finally go back as if you're there. Whatever happened to you, you go back, and it's like you're there all over again. And to go into that, it's scary. It's really scary. And it can be difficult, but can I really encourage you to really try to? Because when I finally did it, once I dived back in deep, and once I went back into the pain, once I went back into the trauma, once I went back into everything that held me down, once I went back, I got to feel it. I got to embrace it. I got to just go through the motions. But can I tell you, once I got out of it, once I came out of it, once I broke those chains off of me, once I finally dealt with it, do you know the amount of freedom that I experienced from that? It's just unbelievable. And it's just like, a lot of people talk about the healing process, but and it can sound, it's more easier said than done. But I'm telling you, once you get into it, once you do it, you'll be so thankful that you chose to do that. Because once I did, I'm telling you, the freedom that I experienced, the joy that I experienced, the happiness that I experienced was unbelievable. And I realized that I was the one holding myself back from all this. God wanted me to be free. He wanted me to be healed. He wanted me to be whole. But He also gives you a choice. He doesn't force you to do anything, because He is a loving God. He is very gentle, and He's a very, like, a gentleman. And He gives His children options, and it's up to us to be able to decide if we want to accept those options or not. And so I finally stopped fighting. I said, God really wanted to help me, and I was so caught up in my feelings. I was so caught up in my pain that I couldn't even see. And he finally, and I'm so thankful to God, because he knows exactly what he has to do in order to wake us up and finally deal with our stuff. And so when he put me in a position, because it's not like he forced me either, because I asked for it. I'm like, I really want to deal with this. And so he put me in a position where I had to deal with it, and I dealt with it. And it's so freeing. It was so freeing, such an amazing experience. And it really led me up to this video, because if I never did the work, if I never got to experience the free the healing process, then I couldn't be talking to you right now. I couldn't be sharing my experience with you right now. And then then that could have prevented you from being free. And you see how us not dealing with our emotions can cause a ripple effect, and can cause a cycle of undealt with pain, and so I'm so glad I did. It's just amazing. You see that relief? It's just like, oh yes, Jesus, thank you. Because it's so freeing, guys. And God really wants us all to be free. He wants us to live a life of freedom, live a life of healing, live a life of hope, live a life of joy, live a life of happiness. He wants us to experience that, guys. And it's really up to us. He gives us the keys. We have to just unlock it. We have to be brave enough to open that door and say, you know what, God, I can't keep on doing this on my own. I really tried this, and I realized that this is hurting me more than it's hurting those people who hurt me. And it's really unfortunate and sad, and I'm really frustrated and angry about what they did to me, but I can't keep on holding to this any longer. Because why? It's affecting me. It's affecting how I see myself. It's affecting how I treat people, and ultimately I'm ending up becoming the person who hurt me, and I don't like that. I don't want to continue for that to happen in my life. And so I just encourage you to really tap into that freedom. The freedom is available, and it's there. The healing process and facing yourself, it's never easy. It wasn't easy for me, but you look at me to know that you can make it out. And once you make it out to that other side, oh, you're just gonna be like, Jesus, oh, praising the Lord, because it is amazing. The feeling that you feel is amazing. And that's why I wore a bright shirt today, because it's just like, just bright. You just feel brighter. You feel lighter. You feel excited. You feel happy. People want to experience that happiness in life. And this is, happiness is real. Happiness is available. And, the price of happiness is, it doesn't compare. So to, the price of pain doesn't compare to the reward of happiness that you will receive after. So, I really encourage you to deal with your pain, deal with your trauma, deal with whatever it is in your life that's holding you back, and a lot of times that requires a lot of work. And a lot of people want that easy, quick fix, but we have to realize that anything good doesn't come easy. And so as much as we want it to, it really doesn't. So just know that the process can be difficult at first, but that reward at the end is just going to be amazing. So I really hope this video encouraged you today. The healing process is just a whole different process, and if you get to experience, anybody who has experienced it or can tell you that it's just amazing afterwards. So just know that you are able to unlock that freedom just like I did, and you'll feel so much better afterwards. And just know that you making that decision is not only going to be the best decision for you, but it's going to have such an impact on not only you, but your children, your friends, your family, and all those people around you. And you know, most people are not doing the work. Most people are not healing. So you're going to look different. You're going to stand out. You're just going to be like that person that everybody looks at like, what is up with that person? They're just so happy. They're just so free. And it's going to be like, yeah, because I did the work, girl, or I did the work, whoever. And it's just going to be like that. So just know, healing is a process, but it's a process that's worth going through. So yeah, that's all I have for you guys today. I really hope this video encouraged you. Please leave a comment, like, subscribe, let me know what your thoughts are on healing and the process. If you've experienced healing already, you know, let me know your experience. If you are going through the process, let me know, you know, about it. I want to hear about it. So yeah, guys, I thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye.